All right, so we're still in chapter 2 of part 1 and methodology. Today, you should start reading item 31.
41?
31.
31. Or 31.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's on page 65 of most books. And just to recap what we have seen so far in this methodology, what Kardec's calling the methodology is a method of basically discussing the doctrine with others who are interested. And when he says in the very beginning of the chapter, that is a natural desire of everyone to share the things that they have gained, the things that they believe they're good for themselves and that therefore to be good for their loved ones as well. And it's actually noble. So to try to bring others that we love into the doctrine is a noble thing. Naturally respecting the free will of everyone, naturally understanding that not everyone is interested, but for those who are, and there is a method to bring them to par with the doctrine. And we see here how Kardec builds the momentum slowly. He starts first differentiate those to whom we should spend our times and for those that we should not, following Jesus' advice, do not throw pearls to pigs. He brings in about the materialists, non-believers, those who are malleable to change and those who are not malleable to any change. And from that on, he continues for those who are willing to listen, how to approach, how to talk to them. And start on this chart, in this chapter now 31, he's no longer talk of the unbelievers or the hardcore materialists. He talk the ones that are now actually that to whom that actually we have gained their ears. How to deal with them now? And of course, this is a suggestion that from the 1860s, that in my opinion is absolutely valid and contemporaneous for now. Okay, Zoraida?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. 31. In order to proceed with the teaching of Spiritism in the same manner as occurs in the other ordinary sciences, it would be necessary to review the entire string of phenomena that may be produced, starting with the simplest and then progressing successively to the most complicated. However, such would be impossible because one cannot take a course in experimental spiritism as if it were a course in physics or in chemistry. When studying the natural sciences, one is dealing with raw matter, which can be manipulated at will, and the effects may almost certainly be controlled. But with Spiritism, one must deal with intelligences who are gifted with freedom and who at every instant prove that they are not at all subject to our capricious whims. Thus, it is necessary to observe, to await the results and reap them as they occur. That is why we vehemently state all those who would flatter themselves by imagining they can obtain results at will are nothing more than ignorant persons or impostors. That is also why true Spiritism will never put on exhibitions or resort to stage shows. It would moreover be illogical to suppose that spirits would ever take part in such exhibitions and submit themselves to research like objects of curiosity. Hence, The phenomenon may not occur at the most desired moment, or they might occur in a much different way than what we intended. We might add further that in order to obtain them, we need persons who are endowed with special faculties, and such faculties vary widely, depending on the aptitude of each particular individual. In addition, since it is extremely rare for one and the same individual to possess all the various aptitudes, the difficulty increases due to our always having to have a truly complete collection of mediums at our disposal, which in itself would never be possible.
Thanks.
Okay.
This item 31 is quite long, so let me break it apart, because otherwise even I got lost on all the things that I want to say. So as I told Kardec, he starts saying that how to proceed with the teaching of spiritualism for those who are interested in listening to us, right? There is a natural tendency to start with the end, so to say, to start with the conclusion, with the experiment. And as we spoke last week, in our physical sciences, in chemistry, in physics, or even biology, if you're going to do experiments, first, we take the theory. You go to the formal classroom, we learn the theory first, then you learn the processes of the experiment that will come later, how to perform, what to use, what the conditions, what the expected results, what is the expected problems that we may face during the experiments. So by the time that you're going to do the experiment, there is no surprises, there is no an awe, so to say, because we had done the theory first. You understand it. And even if it's an unsuccessful experiment for whatever reason, you'll be able to reason of why it wasn't successful, right? Spiritism would have to be the same thing, right? Especially in Spiritism, that is primarily a science of observation more than a science of experimentation. And why is that? It is exactly because in our physical sciences, the experimenter is in control. The experimenter creates the condition, selects the things that needs to perform that experiment, checks the purity of the elements, checks the proper temperature for the expected results. So the one performing the experiment has tremendous control of everything, right? And even so, things there are times goes wrong, and when those things goes wrong, the experimenter is able, because they already have the theory behind, to point out where things went wrong and why, and repeat the experiment with success. Most diseases, those problems are resolved, right? In the science of spiritism, and over here, of course, dealing here with the phenomena of mediumship, it is almost the case that the experimentee is in control rather than the experimenter. You understand? Because you are dealing with intelligences without a physical body. You're not dealing with inanimate objects that you can manipulate at our own will. They have their will. And it's almost as if they have the control more than we do. And perhaps they do. In my opinion, they do. a simple fact that they may decide not to show up. They have a free will. They may decide not to answer whatever questions we place to them. They have their own free will. So in this kind of science, it's almost as if the experimentee is controlling the experiment more than experimenter, which may happen in other areas, I say in biology or zoology, if you want to observe the behaviors of, I don't know, of hyenas. If you truly want to observe the true behaviors, you have to be almost absent of the environment. Otherwise, you already modify the environment and they will not behave naturally anymore. So it may happen in other science, but definitely it happens in the science of spiritism. And that's why it's very important to understand that we observe. Naturally, we can evoke spirits, can invite spirits. Naturally, we will create the proper ambient for the spirits to be able to come in, to be willing to come in and participate. But other many factors must be taken into account for the mediumship phenomena to take place. And that's why Kardec puts over here that all of those who flatter themselves by imagining they can obtain results at will are nothing more than ignorant persons or imposters. That is why true spiritism will never put on exhibitions or resort to stage shows. Okay, and that's because those are not true spiritists, because they do not understand the objectives of the doctrine. The doctrine does not come here as another element for entertainment or anything like that. And that's why, following Jesus' advice, we practice mediumship with Jesus, which suggests to us, give it for free, what for free you receive. At the moment that I gather a few people around me, take $5 or $10 for each one of them, and say they're going to have a communication with spirits, I must deliver. Otherwise, I have to give the money back. Since I live out of this, I'm not going to give that money back. And if the spirits decide that they don't want to show up on that night or that day, my only alternative now is to fake it, which makes me an imposter. Because in reality, the spirits are really in control of the whole process. I may be the most well-educated, I may be the most extensive medium. I am completely dependent, 100% dependent on the presence of spirits who is willing to participate on that session. There's no other way around. So we are primarily a science of observation. You observe the phenomena, you get conclusions from multiple observations naturally, and a philosophy that respects the free will of others. And by others, I mean incarnate and incarnate. So once I put myself in the position of, as a medium, if I'm ostensive medium, of interact with spirits, all that I can do is put myself in that position, put myself into a mediumistic trance and wait. Something may happen, something may not happen. Plus, we can go one step above, in which, assuming places of where mediumship takes place are organized, properly organized, there is, and usually in those places, a directory in the physical world, but more important, there is an administration in the spiritual world that is really the ones who will be in charge of most things. And if those administrators of the spiritual world, the directors in the spiritual world, decides that it's not a good day for things to happen, it may not happen. You may go, you may have your mediumship meetings every week at the same time, at the same place, and one day you may have mediums give communication one after the other, and you may have a day that absolutely nothing happens. When it happens, there is a reason, there is a what for, and it's usually a pretty good clue for that group of spiritualists or spiritists to see what are they doing. What would lead the administrators of the spiritual world to hold back communication on that day? Likely is something that you are not doing so well over here that you need to revise. What are we doing? So, and another obstacle to make this a science of experimentation is the fact that there are a great variety of mediums and mediums ability, of mediums education. There are mediums who are likely to perform psychophonies or speak the thoughts of spirits. There are others who are likely to perform psychographies or the ability to write the thoughts of spirits. There are other mediums who are able to paint what is really the work of spirits, of the spirits. Artists or painters may use a medium's hand and put up a picture on a canvas. So there is tremendous variety of spirits, of mediums. And for a particular phenomenon to happen, it is required to have a particular type of medium that is able to perform that kind of mediumship, to be educated in that kind of mediumship in order to perform it. So there is many factors that prevent spiritism or prevent the phenomena of mediumship to happen at our will. There is the fact that there is also a organic component of the medium that has to have some kind of affinity with the spirits around for that connection with those two perispirits to take place, and for the medium to be able to connect and perform whatever kind of mediumship it has. There is also that organic phenomena, little thing that you do not understand very well, but it's what Kardec teaches us, that is also required. Maybe on that day, the good medium is over there, but all the spirits around does not have that ability to connect with them because the organic component of that medium is incompatible with the mediums around. So it's so multifactorial that we cannot have communications at our own will. But more important, it depends. We depend 100% on what's happening in the spiritual world. And again, well-educated places, if the conditions do not favor, the directors of those places will just say, not today, and that's end of conversation. Questions, comments? All right, you can go ahead then.
Okay. The way to remedy such an inconvenience is really quite simple. One only needs to begin with a theory, wherein all the phenomena are reviewed and explained, and wherein one can recognize them and understand the possibility that they will occur and can know about the conditions under which they may be produced and the obstacles that may be encountered. In this way, whatever may be the order in which the circumstances lead us to witness them, nothing will come as a surprise. And there is a further advantage, that of sparing those who wish to work alone from many deceptions. Being aware of the difficulties ahead of time, they can stay alert and spare themselves from gaining experience at their own expense. Since the time we begin to concern ourselves with Spiritism, it would be difficult to determine the number of people who have approached us and how many among those remained indifferent or disbelieving when confronted with the most obvious phenomenon, only to be convinced later through a rational explanation. How many others were predisposed to accept Spiritism through their reasoning, and how many, finally, were persuaded without having witnessed anything at all, but were led to it because they comprehended it. Therefore, we speak from experience, and that is why we have affirmed that the best method of teaching Spiritism is the one that is geared toward the reason and not the eyes. This is the method we use in our lessons and for which we congratulate ourselves.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So as I previously mentioned, the remedy to the inconvenience of bringing about the phenomena of mediumship at our own will, that we cannot do that our own will, is simple. You have to teach the theory. Okay? And very often when the theory is understood, the experiment becomes almost unnecessary. Not gonna say that we lose the curiosity. The curiosity is there. It should be there. That's what propels us to move on. But curiosity has end, and learning does not. Understanding the theory, and I can ask right here, right now, how many of those who are listening to us now, there is 18 people listening, how many had witnessed a phenomenon? How many had seen a psychography, a psychophony? How many have seen a physical phenomena? How many have seen an apparition? I have never. How many have seen an apportation, a flower appear right in front of you from the spiritual world? I have never. Do I have to see one to believe it? No, absolutely not. If I never see an apportation or an apparition in my entire life, if I never witness a spiritual surgery, I know absolutely that they happen, and they happen much more often than we believe it happens. And because I read, understand, we studied the theory behind it. I don't need to look at two hydrogens hook up with one oxygen to believe that it forms a molecule of water. I know the theory, I know the conditions that makes it happen, and it will happen. And when you got a bunch of those molecules together, you have a drop of water. I don't need to see it happening. So we do that in many other sciences. I mean, how many have seen a dinosaur hanging out on Times Square? But through science, we know that they exist. So at one point, they're hanging out in Times Square. There is still some there, but that's a different conversation, right? So because we have the theory, we can almost like not needed experiment, not needed to witness a mediumistic phenomenon to ever happen. There is a curiosity, yes. Would I like to see an apparition? Yes. Would I be able to deal with that? I hope so, probably not. I don't know. I haven't experienced one, but I know that it happens, and I know how it happens, and I know the mechanisms that makes it happen. And that suffices for me to not only believe, but know it. Believe is weak, but to know is strong, right? And Wakadak says something important here. It prepares you to protect yourself, especially if you choose to walk alone, or the many difficulties that may lay ahead, or the many risks that you may put yourself on if you get into the exercise of mediumship, especially if you do it alone. Okay, and that's why Kardec himself suggests not to do it alone. For the great majority of us, of course, you're not talking about the Divaldos and the Chicos and those lads, but the average Joes and Joannes out there, you should protect ourselves and exercise mediumship in a proper environment, surrounded by the proper people. And Kardec tells here exactly what I had already said, that most people get into the doctrine not because of the experiment, not because of the phenomena. The phenomena was happening during the seances in every corner of Paris at one point. So why France or Paris not loaded with spiritists? Because only to witness the phenomenon is not enough. On the contrary, most who become spiritists did without with the phenomenon. They did after they open a book, start reading, and say, "Whoa, this is fascinating. This is good." So as Kardec was over here, and I like it. They say, therefore, we speak from experience. And that's why we have affirmed that the best method of teaching Spiritism is the one that is geared towards the reason and not the eyes. So to observe the phenomena, to observe the mediumistic phenomenon, it may be interesting, but you not teach anything, anyone anything. Reasoning is what really does it. And again, as I said before, curiosity ends. It comes with the expiration date. You can only be fascinated by a phenomenon for so long. If you go to the same seance every day and see the same turning table every day and never go beyond the eyes, beyond observing it, eventually get boring, it get tired, and you move on. And that's exactly what happened in Paris when eventually everybody got bored and with the seances and move on to something else. But learning never ends. If your curiosity comes with expiration date, learning does not have an expiration date. It is a continuous thing. And once you get it, into it, you want to learn more, you want to learn more, you want to understand it more, you want to understand it better. So those who are interested in only the phenomenon move on. Those who are interested in learning, those who are interested in reason, persist, and here we are. Question, comments? Okay, move on.
Okay. 32.
Yes.
Okay. Studying the Spiritist theory beforehand has a further advantage. in that it immediately shows the grandeur of the goal and the scope of this science. Those who first come to watch a table turn or produce raps may be inclined to ridicule it, since it is difficult to imagine that a table could give rise to a doctrine meant to regenerate humankind. We have always noticed the fact that rather than being superficial, those who believe without having seen, but because they have read and comprehended, are the most thoughtful. Connecting more with the foundation than the form, they see the philosophical aspect as the most important and the phenomenon per se as only accessories. They have stated that even if there were no phenomenon at all, the philosophy in and of itself is the only one that can resolve the many problems that until now have been unsolvable. The only one that offers the most rational theory concerning humankind's past and future. Thus, they prefer a doctrine that correctly explains manners to one that does not explain them or that explains them badly. Whoever would reflect on the issue would clearly understand that one could disregard the manifestations without the doctrine itself having to disappear. The manifestations corroborate and confirm the doctrine, but they do not comprise its essential foundation. The serious observer does not reject them, but on the contrary, waits for favorable circumstances that will allow him or her to witness them. Our progress is proven by the fact that before even hearing about the manifestations, many people already had intuition about the doctrine, which merely came to embody their ideas in a coherent whole.
Thank you.
Okay.
And perhaps the most important thing of studying the theory before the experiment is that when you look at spiritism as a whole in its theory, the scientific part, being as important it is and have its theory, perhaps require a little bit more of the observation of the phenomena, right? But when you get into the theory of spiritism as a doctrine as a whole, with three legs, science, philosophy, and moral teachings, then you get to understand why and what for of spiritism. And that is the most important thing, the why and what for. Okay, and what is that the why and what is the what for? If you keep looking only at tables turning and physical phenomena taking places as a form of entertainment, you never get the true objective of the doctrine, which is, as Kardec put here, to give rise to a doctrine meant to regenerate humankind. And that's extremely deep and complex. To regenerate humankind. That this is the why the spirits at one point start to make table turn and produce all those raps at that time in France. Not because they were trying to entertain us, not because they were trying to show off, because they want to trying to catch our attention for the beginning of a new paradigm for humankind. If Moses / Abraham brought the concept of one and only God, if Christ came, brought the concept of God not being the judge and punisher, but the loving Father, and the paradigms of forgiveness, Now Spiritism can bring a third revelation, our spiritual nature, our interaction with spirits, or responding the philosophical questions, why I'm here, what for us the meaning of all this existence, where do we go from here? Spirit just bring this all those new revelations because it's called the third revelation. This is the why and what for. And if you grasp that idea, that it's not here to be a source of entertainment, that it's not here that the phenomena, the mediumship is an accessory. I like the word category. It's an accessory. It's an instrument that the spirits use to bring us the third revelation, that the spirits use to upgrade morally humankind. And that's what Erasmus says in the same book. For good spirits, the only reason, the only objective of mediumship is to upgrade humankind morally. He specifically says morally, because intellectually we do what no one, but morally we need tremendous amount of help. And that is the objective. This is the why and the what for of the doctrine. Once you grasp that idea, understand that the phenomenon is just an accessory, is a small instrument, then you focus on the theory. And when the circumstances appropriate, indeed the manifestations will corroborate and will confirm the doctrine, but it becomes secondary. It becomes completely secondary, and when the time is right, the observer will be able to observe the phenomenon take place, or maybe spend one entire life as an spiritist, studying, practicing to the best of one's ability the doctrine, without ever witness a phenomenon and not caring about it. Again, the curiosity is natural and it's good. But once one have the theory, you understand that it's secondary to everything else, that the true objective, the what for, is to elevate us morally. And one does not need to witness the phenomenon to upgrade oneself morally. Okay, questions, comments? All right, move on. You are muted, Zoraida.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nevertheless, it would not be correct to say that those who begin with only the theory lack knowledge of the object of practical observation. On the contrary, they do have such knowledge, and it carries more weight than if the phenomenon were produced right in front of them. These involve the numerous occurrences of spontaneous manifestations, which we shall deal with in following chapters. There are few persons who do not know about them, or who have at least heard of them, and there are many who have experienced them without having paid proper attention to them. The theory has provided an explanation for them, and we consider such incidents to be highly important when they are supported by irrefutable testimony, since one cannot attribute any kind of preparation or confidence to them. Even if artificially produced phenomena did not exist, spontaneous one would not fail to occur. And if Spiritism only served to explain them rationally, that would be quite enough. Thus, most of those who read beforehand report their recollections of such phenomena, which are for them a confirmation of the theory.
Thanks. So there's a little bit of the same already. Kazakh really stressing the importance of understanding the theory, and the fact that, okay, let's use an example here. Let's assume that for those who studied together last Sunday, the physical phenomena, okay? And let's assume that one of us walk into a room and we see a table fluctuating in the air, levitating in the air. And from what we have studied together, the first thing that we're going to do is to rule out any possible physical cause. There is a very tiny, almost invisible line holding it in the air, like a fishing line or something that we cannot see. There is a magnet, strong magnet on the ceiling, and there is a metal underneath the table that is making it fall out. We are going to be intelligent enough to rule out all the possible physical causes. We do our homework, and definitely there is nothing holding it. It's really floating by itself in the air. All right, so now with the little understanding that I have, I know that likely I am a medium of physical phenomena, or there is a medium of physical phenomena in the vicinity who is providing ectoplasm to spirits to be able to coat that table with ectoplasm and make that table to be kind of temporarily alive, make the table obey to their mind's command. Now, do I have to ever see a table floating in the air to understand the phenomenon? No, I understand the phenomenon beforehand. And I know very well now that it's capable of happening. And when it's happened, how you understand the mechanism on how it happens. But if I never see one table fluctuating, we will now disbelieve in this of what we have just described, what we have just learned together?
No.
Not necessarily. Now, are there individuals who will need to see to believe it? Perhaps. Now, if they need to see to believe it, once they have got the theory, then they will put the two things together and say, oh, now I believe, and I understand how. But the one who does not the theory behind, who used to say, as I forgot who said, even if I see it, I will not believe it. Because it completely lacks the theory. Because it completely lacks lose an opportunity of learning something new. For most of us, the theory suffices. For those who absolutely believe it, needs to see before believing it. If they do have the theory behind, when they witness, they will put the two things together, everything will make sense, and that's it. For those who do not have the theory, they're perhaps gonna run scared, or you're just not believing even when they witness something which are completely full, in my opinion. Okay, comments? Questions? Let's move on then.
Okay. 34. From our point of view, it would be a mistake to suppose that we have ever recommended that the factual incidents be neglected, since it was through such incidents that we arrived at the theory. It is true that we had to devote ourselves to an insidious task that took several years and thousands of observations. However, since these incidents have served us and continue to serve us dearly, it would be inconsistent on our part if we contested their importance, especially now that we have written a book to make them known. We are merely affirming the fact that apart from reason, they are not enough to lead to conviction, that a prior explanation for them, which resolves prejudices and shows that they are not contrary to reason, predisposes them to be accepted. This fact is so certain that if 10 individuals who are totally new to the matter, who watch an experimental session that follows might regard as having been quite satisfactory, 9 will leave unconvinced, and perhaps a few of them will be even more skeptical than before because the experiments did not correspond to what they had expected. But just the opposite will happen with those who comprehend the manifestations through a prior theoretical understanding. Such an understanding will serve them as a means of control, and nothing will surprise them, not even an unsuccessful experiment, because they will know under what conditions the phenomenon may be produced, and that they must not ask for something that cannot be given. An understanding of the manifestations before enables them not only to be aware of all the anomalies, but also to capture innumerable details and nuances that are almost always extremely subtle, and which will serve them as elements of conviction that could easily escape the ignorant observer. These are the reasons that have led us to admit to our experimental sessions only those persons who have been sufficiently prepared to comprehend what occurs there, because we are convinced that any others would be wasting their time or would cause us to waste ours.
Thanks. So Elder Kardec beat us up, telling us that the really important part is the theory and not so much the phenomenon itself. He pull us back and say, but wait a minute. We are not saying over here to completely neglect the phenomenon. First of all, the only reason that we are talking about this now is because the phenomena happened. There was one time in which those responsible, the spirits responsible to bring to us this third revelation, made use of this phenomena, make use of all the physical phenomena that we mentioned, the wrappings and the turning of tables and all the entertainment around, with an objective that was much more than the phenomenon itself. Again, to bring to us the third revelation. And it was useful in the past and is useful today and will continue to be useful. What is discussing it is that using a method to speak of spiritism to others, to bring this third revelation to others, we should not go with the experiment first, but with the theory first. Once individuals reason on the theory, then the experiment will make a lot of sense. The same way that in chemistry, first you do the theory in the classroom, you understand everything, and then you go to the lab and perform the experiment over there. Otherwise you may burn yourself, or there may be an accident, or otherwise when the phenomena happens, when the result of the experiment happens, you have no idea how, why, or anything else. So you need to do the theory first, and then the phenomena will make sense. No one will deny the importance of mediumship. Otherwise, you can ask Kardec, why did you bother put up this book? How many pages is this thing? 550 pages of books. If mediumship is not so important, it's extremely important. To understand the phenomenon is important, but is an important accessory, is an important instrument to help the elevated spirits to upgrade us morally, to revive the purity of Christianity. It is a very useful, very important instrument, but it's still an instrument. That the most important thing is us to use a doctrine as an instrument to elevate us morally, rather than be chasing ghosts.
Mm.
And it's interesting when he makes the idea of taking 10 individuals, 10 10 people to go and witness a phenomenon. Nine we are not believers or do not understand, who have not seen the theory before. 9 of them will not be affected at all by it. And some will become even more unbelievers because they don't have the knowledge behind. They don't know what to expect. The same way that if you get into a lab without the theory and observe a phenomenon taking place, you have no idea what's happening.
Okay.
You have no idea what made that element combine to another element and form a third element, and in the formation that element that is relief of smoke or the change of color. But if you prepare yourself, you'll be ready to see it happening and understand the complete mechanism. And equally important, if you do not get the result, because you have the theory, you are able to pinpoint what happened that went wrong. Maybe the condition is not appropriate. Maybe the temperature is not appropriate. Maybe one of the elements is not pure enough. If you don't have the theory, you'll be completely lost. You may not even know the thing did not go right. But if you have the theory, you are able to understand. You are able to fix. You are able, equally important, to protect yourself of the all possible risks. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Number 35. For those who desire to acquire this preliminary understanding through our works, we recommend the following order.
Okay, thanks. And just a comment here. So notice the the last item on this chapter. And this is basically the orders that Kardec suggests of, for those interested in initiating spiritualism, how to do it, and if you're going to suggest anyone to do it, what should we suggest? It's very hard for me to comment. Most likely just going to read it, okay? But of course, you're open to any questions.
Okay. What is Spiritism? This booklet of only 100 pages or so presents a summary of the principles of the Spiritist doctrine, a general overview that enables one to see the whole in a condensed picture. In only a few words, one can assert to its objective and judge its scope. Furthermore, it presents the principal questions or objections that newcomers are usually inclined to raise. Such an initial reading, which requires but little time, is an introduction that will facilitate a more in-depth study.
Sorry, I said there's no comment. Make a quick comment here. In this little book, very small book indeed, but very deep, in my opinion. Not as simple and quick read as Kardec make it sounds like over here, again, in my opinion. But it will give a completely scope and synopsis of the whole doctrine, philosophies, science, moral teachings, the whole thing compacted together. Kardec's able to pull it together. And he's clever enough to use basically questions and arguments of non-believers and answer those questions and contra-argue the argument of the non-believers. So it's almost to say, I assume that you never heard of Spiritism and you don't believe in it. People who have that don't believe in it completely disregard it. You have these kinds of thoughts. You have this kind of questions. You have this kind of arguments to not get into it. And I will give you the answers and I'll give you my counter argument. And then you make a decision.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, the Spirits book. This book contains a complete doctrine as dictated by the spirits themselves and contains their entire philosophy and all its moral implications. It reviews humankind's destiny and provides initiation into the understanding of the nature of spirits and the mysteries of life beyond the grave. By reading it, one comprehends that Spiritism has a serious objective and that it is not a frivolous pastime.
Thanks. Yeah, I misspoke. I have to make a comment in every one of them. It's interesting here that by the time Kardec wrote the Spirits book, there are 2 books not even being released yet, right? The Heaven and Hell and Genesis, right? And what Kardec means that the Spirits book it contains a complete doctrine that's dictated by the Spirit. It contains all the books of the doctrine in itself. As we've seen right now in the Spirits book, the very last part, sorrows and happiness of spirits is the very last book of the doctrine, the Heaven and Hell. So each section, each part of the Spirit's book is further detailed, further explained in one specific book. That's why the Spirit's book is the complete book of the doctrine. That's why we never stop studying it, and that's why every year that we start, every time that we start doing it again, it seems that it never reads the 7 questions again. It's amazing. It's because of the complexity of the doctrine, the complexity of the book that requires another book to break down one part of the Spirit's book. And by the time Kardec put his note over here, there was 2 books that was not even being written yet.
3, the Gospel.
Oh, 3, yes.
3, the medium. Oh,
3, that's right. It was only this 2, only the Spirit's book and the Medium's book. That's correct. Not even the Gospel yet.
right. Okay, number 3 is a medium's book. This book is intended to guide those who wish to become involved with the manifestations and provides an understanding of the most appropriate means for communicating with spirits. It is a guide for both mediums and evokers and supplements the Spirits book. Okay.
Okay.
Number 4, the Review Spirits. This journal is an assorted collection of phenomenological incidents, theoretical explanations, and separate excerpts, which supplement what is found in the other previously mentioned works, somewhat comprising their practical application. It may be read simultaneously with the others, although it would be more profitable and especially more intelligible if one reads it after having read the Spirit book. That is the suggested order as far as we are concerned. However, those who want to understand a science completely ought to read everything that has been written about it, or at least about its main principles. And they should not limit their reading to just one author. They should even read the pros and cons, the critics, as well as the defenses, and learn about different theories in order to be able to judge by comparison. In this respect, we neither recommend nor criticize any work because we do not want to influence anyone's ability to form his or her own opinion. In adding our brick to the building, we only fill our own particular niche. It is not our responsibility to be both judge and litigant. We have no foolish pretense of being the only ones capable of spreading the light. Rather, it is the reader's responsibility to separate the good from the bad, the correct from the erroneous. True Spiritist and the true Christian is one and the same. For all those who practice charity of Jesus is
These are notes. These are not part of it. These are notes.
Okay.
It's over.
Okay.
Okay, because I don't have that.
Yeah, and actually,
Yeah.
the third comment no longer applies, right? When they say that the back issues are available only in French and Portuguese. The Spiritist Review is available. The first 5 years is already available in English.
Okay.
Yeah, but you see here the honesty, the humility of Kardec. I think this very last paragraph should be read by us more often, not only in regard to spirituals, but in regard to everything in life. When when he suggests that we should read not only the book, but read other authors, should even read the pros and cons, the critics as well as the defenses, and learn about the different theories in order to be able to judge by comparison. Today that we live in such a polarized environment that we are too far from one to the right or too far to the left. This is so important that we take this to heart as a means of to live our lives. Now listen to those who criticize. Listen to those who are on the other side of our ideologies. Why are they there? What brings them to that side? What are the good that we can learn from them? What are the good that we can give that we can pass to them as well? It's such a humbled and important thing, and that's my opinion. I'm just thinking of it that now. That's what led him to use a pseudonym, to change his name as the author of and the codifier of the doctrine, because only his real name as the notarious intellectual of that time would by itself be something that would lead people toward the doctrine, and he didn't want that. He didn't want people to pick up those books because they see, oh, it's written by, what's his name again? Rivail Denizar. He wants people to pick up this book for their own without being led by him with his position as one of the greatest intellectuals of France at that time. There's tremendous amounts of humility on his side, something that we really should kind to emulate and follow this advice. That's why it's important to understand the other spiritualists, to read the other spiritualists, to see what can we learn from them, what can we pass to them. That only makes us better. That only makes us more complete. And a tremendous exercise of humility. That you're not putting ourselves on the pedestal. He puts over here that you do not hold the whole truth. We hold a little tiny piece of it like every other doctrine, every other group of studies also had their own little pieces. And you want to gonna put the puzzle together if you are humble enough to extend our hands and collect what they have to offer and share what we have to offer as well. All right, questions, comments? Not, let's finish with our prayer.
Okay. Okay. To our beloved Father, our Christ, our spiritual benefactors, with our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you for the opportunity again to be together tonight in our studies of the Spirit's book and the Medium's book. May we take all that we have been given today to continue throughout the week studying and understanding what Spiritism is all about. We are grateful, dear Father, for the assistance given by teachers so profound and so dedicated. We thank you for that. We ask as we leave here today, be able to continue to pray for our brothers and sisters who are going through so much in this planet Earth today. May they be guided and protected, dear Lord. For our families and loved ones and all that have gone to their transition to the spirit world, we pray and ask for peace and serenity for all. And for those that are left behind, we also pray for their strength and courage. We thank you, dear Lord, and may we continue throughout the week with our prayers and our studies. And with that in mind, dear Lord, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.